My name is Connor, this game is Spell Valley, and you are here for a hero spotlight. Today, I wanted to talk about the Wind Mage, who is another of my favorite heroes. The Wind Mage is a rare mage, which means she has relatively low attack and relatively low health, and her whole character revolves around her spell, which is called Gust. What Gust does is it pushes the first hero in a line. So that means that her spell will hit the first hero in a line of hexes. Right now, there's no heroes in range, but she can move and then use her spell to push back an enemy hero. And that might be good against a slower hero like Giant, who really needs every move he can get. A Wind Mage is actually really good against the Giant because the Giant keeps stepping up, and the Wind Mage can just keep pushing him back. And that's especially good at higher levels because at higher levels, the Wind Mage's Gust only costs 1 mana, meaning you get to do this every single turn. And so she can keep enemies at bay by pushing them back. Now, another thing to understand about Wind Mage and about push heroes in general is that push can be used to deal collision damage. What does that mean? Well, if you try to push a hero and they're unable to move, maybe because there's a tower or the edge of the board or another hero in the way, they'll actually collide with whatever they get pushed into. In that case, both the colliding heroes each take 1 damage. And this is a mechanic I took from Into the Breach, which is which if you're unfamiliar, this is a really excellent turn-based strategy game. And they make a lot of good use of this push mechanic where you push your characters around. And they also have this element of collision damage, which I thought was really nice and added some really good texture to the push mechanic, because sometimes you can't push something because there's something else in the way, but you still get this compensation of damage between the heroes. And that looks like this. And you can see that actually because the low level 2 Wind Mage only had 1 health, she could actually be taken out by the higher level Wind Mage. So you can use the Wind Mage to push enemy heroes into each other and deal with low health characters in the back lines that way. Mirror matches between a Wind Mage and another Wind Mage are often kind of funny because they can each end up spending their push or spending their Gust to deal that collision damage to the other Wind Mage in the hopes that they can finish off the other Wind Mage before they themselves die to the collision damage, which can be kind of funny. So those are some sort of straightforward examples of things you can do with Gust. But that's just the beginning. Push is a really powerful mechanic. Movement is a really powerful mechanic. And you know, and there's one of the best things you can do with Gust is actually using it to push your own heroes. So, for example, if we play this warrior, and we'll walk the giant forward, but for purposes of the example, you might think, you know, hey, I want to attack the giant with my warrior, but I can't because you can see the warrior, the giant here is not in range of the warrior, right? The warrior can move and then he can attack because he has charge, allowing him to attack after moving. But that lets him attack something that's 2 hexes away, but not something that's 3 hexes away. But we can still use the Wind Mage's push to assist the warrior. So for example, we might step the warrior up, step the Wind Mage back, and we can still use our Gust to push the warrior again. And because the warrior has charge and he can attack after moving, he can attack the giant. You can do similar things with other heroes, even if they don't have charge. For example, we can step back with the Wind Mage, push our archer forward, and then the archer can still attack, right? Because heroes in Spell Valley can typically move or attack each turn. That's true of the archer. But when you push another hero, that doesn't count as an action for them. That doesn't count as using their move. And so you can still use their action to do something else, in this case attack, and hit the giant and kill him. Now, there are lots of allies that I think are particularly fun to push around. One I've talked about already is the Barbarian, who I featured in my last hero spotlight. That's because the Barbarian has cleave, so he can deal damage to multiple heroes with his axe. And once again, doesn't look like he's in range, but with the Wind Mage, we can use Gust to push him, and then he can get a big hit on multiple heroes, in this case, killing 2. For similar reasons, I think the Lancer is a lot of fun to push around because he has Pierce. He can hit multiple hexes at once. And the wizard, for the same reason, the wizard deals damage in a big long line, but the wizard can't use his spell and move an attack in the same turn. So you can use your Wind Mage to push the wizard around and while still allowing him to cast his spell. Now there's also situations like this where the Lancer is actually too close, right? Our Archer can't attack the Lancer because he's inside her range. But with the Wind Mage, you can fix that. You can set the Wind Mage, push the Lancer back, and now our Archer is ready to attack the Lancer. So the Wind Mage is really a hero who sacrifices strength for flexibility on the board. And this amplifies the power of all your other heroes because you can extend their effective range and put them in places where your opponent wouldn't normally expect. However, the downside is that you're sacrificing attack and health. And so if you're running a deck which maybe doesn't have a lot of attack from its other heroes or a lot of health from its other heroes, you could end up in trouble because the Wind Mage can't defend herself very well. She needs support from other heroes. She's not contributing damage. She's not contributing a status effect like a slow or a stun. And she's not a frontlining hero. She's not a hero that can, survive a bandit attack very easily, for example, or a warrior or a barbarian. Most heroes, if they get to the Wind Mage, she's not going to survive. In general, I find the Wind Mage is a hero that is a little tough for new players to learn because they don't necessarily see all the things you can do with push. But I think, as you can tell here, this is a really powerful effect and one that once you play with and learn how to use, especially if you're using it in tandem with other heroes that are especially good when pushed, I think you'll see that it's actually one of the game's most powerful effects, even though it looks innocuous. I want to talk a little bit about Wind Mage's levels, how she scales as she levels up, and why you might want to play her at each of the different levels. Remember, in Spell Valley, your heroes have 5 different levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 when your heroes are maxed out. And so you have to choose carefully, even with any given team, who's going to be my level 5 hero, who's my level 1, etc. Because that can really change how powerful, not just how effective your deck is, but it really changes the character of your deck. So the first thing that scales on the Wind Mage is her mana cost. You can see that at level 1, Gust costs 3 mana. So she has to wait 3 turns to cast Gust. At levels 2 and 3, it costs only 2 mana. At levels 4 and 5, it costs 1. That's a really significant change, right? To go from 3 all the way down to 1. Level 4 and 5 Wind Mages can use their Gust every single turn. Level 1, it's once every 3 turns. And the reason why that's appropriate is because a single Gust can be so powerful. Consider a timing attack deck where you're just trying to push the Barbarian in, let's say, for 1 key turn, and maybe you've got a Minotaur rushing in, and you're going to push the Barbarian at, on turn 3 as well. Then you actually don't want to be dedicating more resources to the Wind Mage because all you care about is getting that 1 Gust off at the right time so that you can take a key trade on a specific turn. But other times you actually really want that lower mana cost. For example, you might want to be pushing back a giant every turn who's coming at you, or you might have a deck that's oriented around taking repeated smaller trades and really benefits from that push every turn as opposed to one big push on a key turn. And then the other thing that scales is the Wind Mage's health. You can see that her health scales from 1 to 5. She gets 2 more health at level 3 and 2 more health at level 5. If you find that your Wind Mage is under threat by heroes that do small amounts of damage, you may benefit from leveling her up. That said, you don't really want to do that. It doesn't make her more effective at her key thing. You would rather be playing her at the lower health levels if you can get away with it. And one way that you can try to counter an opponent's Wind Mage is threaten to deal this kind of damage so that your opponent is forced to level her up so that she doesn't die. And that can be a big concession, especially, as I said, for a deck that maybe only wants to use Gust on, 1 or 2 big turns. Forcing that player to level up their Wind Mage can be a serious concession. It's also worth noting that this 1 health is really low. Obviously, it doesn't get much lower than that. And that means that the Wind Mage is really, really susceptible to small points of damage at low levels. As you saw, 1 Wind Mage's Gust can kill a low-level Wind Mage, for example. And she's just kind of fragile, and you want to keep that in mind if you're playing her, particularly if you're playing her at low levels, so you don't get your Wind Mage accidentally killed. And that's really all I have to say about the Wind Mage. I think she's a really fun and interesting hero. She opens up a lot of new tactics and strategies. And I think that players who want to really broaden the possibility space and outwit their opponents with these little movement tricks will really enjoy playing the Wind Mage. And the downside is that she's not going to offer a lot on her own. She's really amplifying the powers of the heroes that are around her. So she really rewards crafting a deck of characters that especially benefit from that sort of push, or especially benefit from her pushing back enemy heroes so that they can't reach the lower health heroes on your backlines. This has been another Hero Spotlight. Please like, subscribe, download the game, tell all your friends about it. You can drop a comment or talk to me in the Discord more directly. If you're interested in some of the philosophy behind Spell Valley, I also have a design blog. You can go to Substack and see that there. Link is once again in the description below. And stay tuned for more Spell Valley content.